we believe we may have found one of the most underrated travel destinations in the Caribbean. We have just recently returned from Puerto Rico, and this time we discovered so much more that Puerto Rico has to offer. This week, we will share with you what we learned and why we think you should put this on your travel destination list. I'm Scott.
And I'm Melissa.
And we're the Sunshine Travelers. Our passion is travel and sharing our experiences with those who enjoy it as much as we do, or those who want to learn more about travel, or even those who just want to live vicariously through our travel stories. No matter where you fall along that journey, get ready to hear about our first-hand experiences as we visit some of the most interesting and amazing places on Earth.
So, Scott, we've just returned from our second trip to Puerto Rico, and this time it was for a travel creator conference called TBEX, and also for the first annual Travel Creator Awards, for which we were nominated for the Best Travel Podcast.
Yeah, that was a really exciting time. I mean, thank you to everyone that supported us. We had so many people reaching out from all over the world who said, hey, we voted, we're supporting you. And so we just appreciate all of that support that everyone showed.
Yes, and for the people that nominated us, and yes, for all those votes, we really do appreciate that. And so what was interesting about going back to Puerto Rico is, like you said, I think it's an underrated travel destination. It is not somewhere that we really had on our list, even from the first time. And if you listen to our other Puerto Rico episode, the reason that we went there before is because I had actually messed up and not, booked flights to go to St. Thomas, which is close by. And so I was like, well, we could extend our trip and you could, work from there. And so we kind of tacked that on, which is why we didn't do a ton of things last time. And so we're excited to get to go back and do more. And now there's even more on our list. So I don't think that our second trip is going to be our last trip to Puerto Rico either.
And I think this is why we say that when you get to a destination like this, one of the first things you should do is to take a tour. And we didn't do that when we went to Puerto Rico the first time. But this time, that was one of the very first things we did is we took a tour. It is a culinary tour, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later. But it really got us really digging Old San Juan.
Yeah. Well, we spent a lot of time there before. Every single night we went into Old San Juan, but it was different, right? Because literally we went to places that we hadn't even noticed, which is funny because I feel like if you know anything about Old San Juan, it's not really a big place, right? Like when you go to some of these other cities and towns, you can walk it very easily in, a short amount of time.
But we had taken some recommendations last time, and we couldn't get into those places because you needed to have a reservation, and we didn't have one. And, we found a couple of places that were okay, but this time we really hit hard with finding some great places on that tour.
We did. So we're going to get into that in just a second. So what do we want to share? Is there anything else we want to share, I guess, about TBEX and specifically for people?
Well, I think that one of the biggest things is wherever they host a TBEX at, that's where they have the local tourism board who comes in and plays a big role in helping to host the conference. And in this case, it was Discover Puerto Rico. And boy, they did a fabulous job. I think they really set the bar very high.
And so this was our first TBEX conference. And so, yes, I feel like that they did set the bar really, really high. And so in addition to Discover Puerto Rico, but playing a big role in that, a lot of the local tour operators also play a role in hosting some of the experiences before, during, and after, and having you go out with them so that they can just take you around so that then you would recommend and, talk to other people about those experiences. And that's really the goal. So however you as a creator share content, blog, podcast, YouTube, that you would then go out and, encourage your viewers and listeners and followers and to visit the location and then also book those experiences when they go. And so we wanted to talk about the ones that we were able to experience and then also some of the ones that we met with and got to learn more about, but then didn't on this specific trip get to go out with them. And so hopefully we'll be able to go back and do that at another time. because they were so generous. One even gave us a voucher to, come back and do their experience as well. So we were excited about that. And so one of the first one, and you alluded to that, was the walking food tour. So it was a small group of people, and it was called the Spoon Experience. And we were super excited about this one. So this one was interesting because it actually fell on our 30th anniversary. So instead of us having a 30th anniversary date, we got to celebrate with a lot of people. But we were super impressed with this experience. We've done some food tours before, and I think this one will encourage us to try to book some more, right? Because you really get like history, and they take you to the local places like we talked about that we had never even noticed. And we were so full. She took us to 4 different places. You had, food and drinks. And then in between, as we walked, she talked about the architecture. She talked about the history. She talked about the culture. And so, it was just such a great tour. Highly, highly recommend. They have some different ones. So we did the evening, I think what they call the sunset tour. I think it was catered more on the private tour side. But they also have a morning walking tour where you can, do like coffee and breakfast and that kind of thing. So lots of experiences.
Yeah. One of the places that really stuck out to me was the bar that was inside that hotel that we went to, the old convent that had been converted into a hotel. And, I probably would have never thought to go inside there and, go to a bar, go to a restaurant inside that hotel. But it ended up being probably one of, all of them are great, but one of my favorite places that we went to on that tour.
Yeah, that one was really neat. And we had some delicious ceviche there. And I like the variety of the food, right? It wasn't like, there's certain dishes like the mofongo, that's popular. And we had that at one place, but it wasn't like every single place we had that.
Let's tell what mofongo is.
Okay.
Because we had never heard of mofongo, or never tried it at least. I think you said you might have heard of it before, but we had never tried mofongo before, even though we had been to Puerto Rico.
Yeah. So honestly, I don't even remember that being on the radar for last time, which is funny because I feel like this time everywhere we went, which is strange because we ate in Old San Juan last time, almost every single, evening.
So the Uber driver that dropped us off at the hotel, obviously we asked him for recommendations. This is what we do. And he said, oh, while you're here, you have to try the mofongo. And so for everybody listening, mofongo is basically the plantains. They take them, put them into like a mortar and pestle thing, and they squish them down and chop them up with the pestle. Or is that the mortar? Which one's the one that you kind of push down on? Somebody will tell us. Yeah. I'm certain. But anyhow, they, mash them down real good, and then they bake them. Is that what they do? Somehow or another, they bake it, or I'm not quite sure if it's baked or if just that they have mashed that down. And then they put toppings inside of there. So it's almost like a shell. Well, I take that back.
Well,
Some places we had it was like a shell.
Yeah, I think it depends on like the family recipe or the chef's recipe or whatever. So they can do the spices, garlic, olive oil, spices, like whatever it is that they, spice it up with.
That one restaurant, though, that we went to, Juanes, right? We said that was the best mofongo that we had had. And it wasn't quite as fibrous, I felt. Because sometimes even when you have tostones or whatever, they've got a little bit of a fibrousness to them. This was just really smooth and almost like a puree, I felt like. And then it had they have either a Creole sauce or garlic sauce that they put on there, and then some type of protein. So whether it be, fish or chicken or steak or pork or shrimp or whatever.
We had it with octopus, pulpo.
Octopus, yeah. And they put that sauce on top. And so, just that whole, the plantain and the protein and the sauce is it's a very hearty meal though.
Yeah, it sure is. And so it's just interesting how many different ways we had it in the course of the week. And sometimes it had that rare, very rich garlic sauce. And like you said, some of them were more tomato-y based. More
Yeah,
like
the Creole sauce, I think, was more of the red sauce. And the garlic sauce was like the white sauce that was on them. Both were very good. I think I liked the Creole probably the best, but also like the plantains when we had it with the Creole sauce was the best as well.
Yeah. And I think also this time we had more opportunities to try things that were like samplers, right? In the course of some of the events that we had, and then a couple of things that we went to where they would bring out the different, just like different Puerto Rican dishes to try, like almost little appetizers, whether it be the empanadas or, the fried cheese or just whatever. So we had that more this time, I felt like, than before.
Yeah. But I'm going to tell you, I came across this thing that is probably worth the trip to Puerto Rico by itself. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
It wasn't the pina colada. Oh, come on. It was that big, huge con pork chop.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Oh, this thing was great. And I had seen it at a couple of restaurants. And I was like, ooh, what is that? What are they eating? And so finally we went somewhere one night, and that was kind of their specialty. I think we'd even looked it up. We tried to find the best con pork chop in all of Old San Juan. And we went to this one restaurant, interestingly enough, that was open 24 hours a day. And I think I had even said to you, I don't know if I want to go there. Like this doesn't sound like a typical Puerto Rican restaurant or something. But it was delicious.
Yeah, it had a lot of good reviews. And when we went there, it was kind of off the beaten path, like more, it wasn't in Old San Juan, it was more in a neighborhood. And so when we got there, and we were like, okay, yeah, this is a local place. Cause then even like this huge family came and they were celebrating something. And so, yeah, that was definitely the little local hidden gem for sure.
Yeah. We'll have to put a link to that inside the show notes.
Yes, we will.
Well, let's talk a little bit about another experience that we did with Roberto from Westside Destinations. So on our last day there in Puerto Rico, we did a tour, and this was part of the TBEX conference where they had, set it up where you could sign up for these different tours. And we chose to do beach hopping with an outfit called Westside Destinations. And Roberto, we'd met him a couple of times throughout the week. He was he was participating in all of the events during the week. And he's such an outgoing personality. He had come up, and somehow or another we had gotten introduced to him. And he knew who we were, by name and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, yeah, you're coming with me later this week. And so he took us out. There was probably, 6, 7 of us. And we went out to the southwest side of the island. And these are some of the beaches where all of the locals go. And Roberto is a lifelong Puerto Rican. He's lived there on the island, and he's lived there in that area all his whole life. And so he knows all the places to go. And even knows all the people there. I remember when we got to some of the beaches, and they were blocking them off because they were already starting to kind of reach the capacity of people that they wanted to have at them. And, of course, he talked his way in, and we got all the way back to the best spot, right on the point. And so, Roberto really did a good job, not just taking us to the places where we would want to go or where he thought we would want to go, but along the way, he told us a lot of the history of the island. And he told us stories about him growing up on the island and what was it like. And then, some of the storms that they had gone through. And so just spending that day with Roberto really was informational. And it really got my, wheels spinning about our next trip back down to Puerto Rico. And we don't often talk about, next trips to a destination, because we have this goal of we want to visit new places, right? And so when we start talking about going back to somewhere, you know that it's got to be somewhere special.
Yeah. And you talk about like him seeing people that we knew. We'd be like driving through a town and somebody would be unloading their truck and he was like, oh, I know him. He owns such and such a restaurant. Let me say hey real quick. Or, when we went to the place that we were going to, or one of the towns that we were going to, have lunch and stuff like that. He'd like, okay, well, I know this Dan and I know his grandma and I know him. And so this one's good. And I think I'm going to go over to this one. And so it was just like, wow, like to have somebody who like, knows all the people and then can tell you like you said, like, here's where I went to college and this is what, this is what it was really like during the hurricane. And this is the things that we did to like help people and stuff like that. So it was just really, you really felt like you were visiting a friend and riding along with that person and like spending time with that person. That's kind of what I felt like. Like he made you feel like you were his friend and he was just telling you all the things that, might be of interest, plus the history and all kinds of things about the places that we were seeing.
I'm trying to remember where it was that we stopped and he had taken us to point out like a downtown. It was in between two beaches that we were going to or whatever. And so he had pointed out this downtown. And while we were there, he said, hey, let's go grab an ice cream from this local place. And we went in there and, all of this ice cream was homemade. So they had a machine right there that was making it as we stood there. And we all had ordered ice cream, all 6, 7, 8 of us, however many there were. And like the total on this thing was like $20.
Yes.
It was amazing. And it was all, fresh homemade ice cream. And it was just somewhere that he knew. And he was like, hey, this is great. Let's go in. Let's support these local people or whatever. And we all went in there and it was wonderful.
It was wonderful. And just as a comparison, you and I had ice cream in Old San Juan. Now, granted, it was like a fancy place that was obviously very popular, but I think that's what it cost for the two of us. And then and then all the ice cream for everybody. So that's the other thing I think just to point out about being in Old San Juan or some of the really popular tourist spots versus being in that South and West. We have said, and we said in our other episode, Puerto Rico is a bit expensive, but I think if you spend time in some of those other places, it could be a lot less expensive.
Yeah. So, Melissa, let's drop a link for Roberto's tours, because I think people would really enjoy that and get a lot out of that.
Yes, for sure. And we will do that. He has several different ones, but also like if there's something in particular that you wanted to see, I would say just like reach out to him and talk to him, because he did. I think like as we had time, he was like, this isn't really like normally, but let me take you over here and show you this. So I think just like whatever he can fit in, to like tell you about in the time that you have, I think that he would be so willing to do that. When you are looking at booking reservations for your next trip, we recommend using Booking.com. You can choose from over 1 million properties worldwide, from cozy country homes to sleek city apartments. Find the best deals with their price match promise. Enjoy great stays at lower cost. And because flexibility matters, book with confidence, knowing you can cancel with ease if plans change or you change your mind. Make informed choices with millions of reviews from fellow travelers. Start your adventure now. Visit sunshinetravelers.com/booking to book your perfect stay. Okay, so let's talk about a few of the other ones that we didn't get to do this time, but that we definitely want to go back. We got to meet with these people during the conference. And then also we got to see from some of the people that we met that we now, follow on social media. As they went on their tours, we got to see, as they posted on stories and things like that, some of their experiences on some of these. So the first one is Sofrito Tours. And so the tour operator, her name is Laura, and she offers a variety of tours around the island. She's actually a doctoral student for a PhD in history in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean. And I saw and heard other people talk about the level of knowledge and expertise and experience that she had and how impressed they were with just what she had to offer. So definitely check her out. And again, we're going to not only put Roberta's tour, link, but all these other ones. So, you don't have to try to remember these names or anything like that. But just as you're planning your trip to Puerto Rico, go and look up some of these.
And I think that the reason we want to share these is just because by doing these experiences, we saw so much more of Puerto Rico and made us want to go back and do more. And as I just said a few minutes ago, when we want to go back and do more in a place, that's pretty special.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we have done trips where we have done a lot of tours, and then we have done trips where we can just go see this and do this. But I think this helped us kind of almost realize how much more you get out of the tours, the food tours or the walking tour, or just day trips with somebody. Sure, you can rent a car and go to these places, but then how much more valuable that is. So, going forward, just remembering, okay, not only are we helping to support, the local economy, but, specifically local people, but how much more of a rich experience I think we get when we actually understand not only what we're seeing, but the history behind it. And then how, it affects real people and stuff too. So Laura at Sofrita Tour. So I'll have that link. And another one is Isla Caribe, and she is specific to the town of Ponce in the South. So very well versed specifically to that. And in one of the opening sessions we had one day, the speaker had actually gone on a tour with her. And she just said, she was talking about how impressed she was with them because she was asking some, very specific questions. And she almost detoured the tour a little bit. And there was a few things she didn't know and did some research. And they kind of went off in a different direction based on some of the interest in the questions that they had. So if you visit the town of Ponce, definitely want to look at and hire Isla Caribe tours to, do these walking tours or do these private tours with you.
So I was talking to the tour operator from Ponce, and I asked the question is, do you have a lot of people from the cruises that would come and do this tour? And because Ponce is on the opposite side of the island from San Juan, she said generally they don't have enough time in port to go that far and do the tour. But if you're staying in San Juan or you're staying in Caguas or one of those other places, Ponce would be a great place for you to go and to visit and to do this tour. And like Melissa said, just the wealth of knowledge that you get, but also it helps you understand a little bit more about the culture and to really experience just not the same old that everybody else is going to see when they go on a cruise or something like that to Puerto Rico.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing I didn't mention about our tour with Roberto is exactly kind of what we did. Now, because Puerto Rico, is pretty large, there was a good bit of time, where we spent driving, but we did get to visit 2 beaches with him. One of them was more would you say it was like a state park, almost like what we would consider to be like a state park. And then the town of Boquerón. And that was where it had all the different stands for the food. And that was interesting. So we did this tour with him on a Saturday. So being on a Saturday, the town was bustling with local people. The beaches were bustling with local people. So yes, everything was a bit crowded, but it was neat to get to see it as local people experience it, right? And so that was just a neat town to get to visit. And he took us to, like Scott said, a couple of other places as well. So you might be thinking, wait a minute, I'm in the Caribbean. I'm not here to do history tours and all this stuff. I want to just go to the beach and see the water and go to islands. So this next one then is for you. And that is the outfitter called East Island Excursions. So if you want to do boats and snorkeling and visit some of the beautiful islands or the beaches such as Culebra, Vieques, Icacos, I think you say it, then East Island Excursions is the way to go. So they have catamarans. They also actually have some little boats you can do near San Juan. So you can check them out for if that's what you want to do. And so several people got to do these and do the snorkeling tours and go out on the boats. And so now this would be for day trips to Vieques too. So Vieques is a place that we actually want to go back and stay on. It's closer to the side of the island. It's like toward St. Thomas and St. John. So kind of has a little bit more of that vibe. But so East Island excursions is who you want to check out for those kinds of experiences in Puerto Rico.
Those are all things that we didn't do, but let's don't forget the things that we actually got to do while we were there. And we talked a little bit about Spoon earlier. And on this tour, we met a lot of different people from T-Bex. And one of them is a chef that we met. His name is Jay. Now, he's a creator, and we're going to have him on the podcast soon. So I don't want to talk too much about him, but we're going to talk to him about the best destinations to go for food travel. So stay tuned for that one because we're really excited about this one, and you're going to want to hear his story.
Yeah. So like I had mentioned, we had connected to a lot of these people and started following them on social media. And so he had actually, well, I think he wore his hat though, right? Didn't he have it on his hat that night? And so then he had posted like where he had come from. And so I was like, oh, I hadn't said, oh, I really want a Panama hat before. But I did see another lady who had one too. And so he posted where he got it from. And so I was like, if we have time, Scott, let's go to that shop because I'd really like to look at their hats because they actually custom personalize them, I guess I should say. And so this hat shop is called Ole Puerto Rico. And so we did have a chance to go and do this. And I kind of had in mind, the style that I wanted. And it's just a neat experience because the people that they have working there like help you. It's one of those places where they kind of help you from start to finish. Like you try on the different styles and then she's like, okay. So the girl that helped us, her name is Gabriella, and she like helped us, helped me pick out like, oh, this one looks good and this size is good. And then we picked out the ribbon that I wanted. And so I was just chatting with her as she was, making sure everything fit and put that on. And so this shop has actually been in Old San Juan since 1977. So 47 years. And now it's actually like being run by like the grandchildren. And so she told us a whole lot about, the hats and famous people that had come in there and had hats made and stuff like that. So they're actually hand woven in Ecuador. And so she did say that in the past, I think when they very first started, that the material was grown there in Puerto Rico. And so they were woven there in Puerto Rico. But now that's not really possible. So they get them and they're done in Ecuador, which we have been to. So that was, pretty special for us too. And then, like I said, they fit them and personalize them in the store. And so that was just neat. So Scott and I aren't huge on buying like, souvenirs and different things like that. But if we can find something to bring home that we will actually wear and use, like, I think that just makes it really special. We've done that in Greece with sandals and, different places with bags and stuff like that. And so then, anytime you wear them, then you remember that. So if you want a Panama hat customized, and this is in Old San Juan. So if you're there on a cruise, this would be a great place to visit.
So on our last trip, we stayed in an area called Condado, and that's about 10 minutes from Old San Juan. And many of the hotels are right on the beach. If you've been following us for a while, you'll remember a picture of Melissa sitting in front of this big window with the ocean out behind her. And we were actually recording the Puerto Rico episode there in Puerto Rico.
We did. So that was actually episode 8. We talked about our 4 days in Puerto Rico the last night before we were headed on to St. John. Yeah. So that picture, because that was really neat. So a different experience, right? Because we, like Scott said, we had that big picture window that overlooked the ocean. And we enjoyed that. But this time we stayed right by the convention center, which is usually not our vibe at all. But it was just convenient, right? So if you're doing a convention like this, like you just want to be able to, be within walking distance. And so what I wanted to share about that specifically was that we were right by, they have almost like a entertainment district that they've built, right? They have the convention center and the hotels in this entertainment district, which is run by or operated by T-Mobile, District Go T-Mobile. And we thought this is 100% touristy, right? For people who are here for the conventions, 100%. We were completely wrong. We arrived on Sunday afternoon and our room wasn't quite ready. So we needed to go get lunch. So they actually recommended a Puerto Rican place right next door. And so we made our way over there and were fortunate enough to get a table kind of outside. So this place is really interesting because it's got a nice cover over it so that it can be enjoyed, even with the hot sun. It's like almost a projection screen on
the roof,
on the backdrop, and all these places for people to sit and lawn games and stuff like that. But we were amazed. We were like, this is 100% like local people hanging out on a Sunday afternoon. So that was just really surprising to us because before we would have thought, oh, we wouldn't go over there because it seemed like a touristy place. 100% not. And what was so interesting was then that night, the Puerto Rico basketball team played the final game to get into the Olympics. And so then it was completely packed out. And every single day they had some kind of event. They actually, the next day, they had all the Olympic delegation from Puerto Rico there to do like a presentation. So it was just really neat, actually, to be right there. So, and this is the second time in our Buenos Aires episode, we talked, with somebody that's a local, and he even mentioned several places that it was like, oh, this is where tourists like to go, but locals like to go there too. So it's not necessarily a touristy place. And so I think this is just another lesson for us is just don't assume that this is local versus this is tourist, because so many people like during the day, for lunch, like you could tell people who worked, were there for lunch. The other thing about the convention center is it's not just designed or utilized for people coming from, other places. They had a huge kids sports.
Yeah, I think it was basketball and volleyball. I mean, they must have had thousands and thousands of families there, coming and going. And most of them were local. Some had traveled in and were staying in the hotels, but a lot of locals there as well. And looked like they were doing this huge basketball and volleyball tournament and kids of all ages.
Yeah. So if you're in Puerto Rico and you have some, if you have some time, so we would prioritize Old San Juan, over this. But if you have some time, it was also very convenient for us because it was, the hotel was right there. But what I was going to say is that area is also very convenient to Old San Juan. So this time we opted not to do a car. And so that was going to be our other tip, is that last time we actually rented a car for the whole time, and we really should have just rented a car for the weekend to go last time. And you can hear about that in episode 8, like I mentioned. But last time we had gone out to the rainforest, a couple of other things. We should have just returned the car and used an Uber, because in a lot of these hotels in this whole area, you're going to pay like $25 a day to, park the car at the hotel. And then you're going to have to park the car when you go into Old San Juan. And so you just really don't, if you're going to stay in that area and then do some of these tours, you probably don't need a car. And then if you're going to venture out your own, just go rent a car for a day or a little while.
Yeah. And if you'll remember back to episode 8, we talked about how difficult it is to park in Old San Juan. You either have to park down by the port, or you've got to try to find a space on these very narrow streets where everybody's parallel parking.
And it's very hilly. And so last time we ended up parking in that deck. And so what would you say, just as reference for people, how much was it every time we Ubered over there?
I would say during peak hours, it was about $15. Off peak, it was, $5 to $7.
And so if you did that only once per day there and back, like the rental car fee plus your parking down, and it's just not, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
So that would be our tip for a car.
So in that area, you had a Sheraton and an Aloft hotel. We stayed at the Aloft, and I just want to call them out real quick because we had put on there that this was our 30th wedding anniversary while we were there. And when we got into our room, they had filled the room full of these big silver balloons and little red heart balloons. And so the whole room was full of these balloons, and on the bed, they had taken rose petals and made a giant heart on the bed in the shape of those rose petals with the rose in the middle of it. And then these little flowers all around that made the bed look like it was almost quilted. And I mean to tell you, they went over the top to make that special. And so I just want to call out the A-Loft there in San Juan and really recommend to you, if you're going to go there and you're going to stay in this area, give these guys an opportunity. Now, the one downside that I will say is Melissa talked about that Districto T-Mobile there. Well, when they have the music, they go till late in the night. And if you're on the side of the hotel that faces that, you hear and feel that music till late into the night. So just one thing to think about. If you stay there, ask them to be on the side that faces the water fountains.
Yeah. But it was super convenient. Like I would say all the way around, it was very convenient. So the only other place I think that we would say that we would like to stay if we went back and wanted to spend some more time in Old San Juan would be that
Hotel El Convento.
Yeah. And it's actually part of the Hilton group, I believe, but that would be a neat place to stay. That would be super convenient to Old San Juan. And then you could, venture out from there.
Yes. Growing up in Atlanta, I never knew anyone from Puerto Rico and didn't have much of an appreciation for what a great destination this could be. Our first trip there didn't allow us much time to explore. However, this time as we experienced so many new places and adventures, I couldn't help but to think that Puerto Rico would be a great destination for a group trip. Exploring different areas like Old San Juan, Caguas, Ponce, Culebra, Vieques, this could be really amazing. Are you interested in joining? If so, send me an email at scott@sunshinetravelers.com and let me know. We think this is a great destination, and it's only a short 3.5 hours from Atlanta.
When we are planning a trip, our favorite way to book local experiences is through Viator. We've saved up to 50% on popular tours and experiences by booking with Viator, and so can you. Viator is one site with 300,000 plus travel experiences. We like using Viator because of the free cancellation policy. Plans may change, so you can receive a full refund if you cancel at least 24 hours in advance of most experiences. Book your spot now and pay later with a Reserve Now, Pay Later feature. And of course, before booking, we always read the trusted reviews. Viator has 4.3 stars from 140,000 plus Trustpilot reviews. Go to sunshinetravelers.com/Viator to explore and book your next local experience. Using our affiliate link to book your experiences and travel helps support our podcast and allows us to continue to provide new content each week. Please consider using this link when booking your next experience. There is no extra cost to you, and we are compensated through the affiliate.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and found some inspiration to help you with your travel journeys. If you could take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, it would be greatly appreciated. Your 5-star reviews help us get discovered by others and possibly featured on your favorite platform. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to our podcast to get notified of new episodes as they are released. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at Sunshine Travelers Podcast. Remember, that is Travelers with one L. Most importantly, please share it with your friends to help them catch the travel bug. You never know, they may become your greatest travel companion.